What's going on, guys? I'm Landon from Shoewear, and today we're checking out the second model in Nike's newest basketball shoe line, the Nike Air Zoom GT Run USA. Let's do it. All right, so before we jump into reviewing the shoe itself, let's go ahead and hit on the box and the price first. So you're going to hear me reference the first model, the GT Cut, a lot and kind of jump back and forth as sort of a comparison between those and the second model that we have here today. So if you haven't checked out that review yet by us, just stop now and go get that look really quick. It's a pretty short video to watch, so that'll just get you more up to speed with what Nike is doing in this shoe line. Or don't, and you can just stay here and check out these, that works perfectly fine too. But you will notice plenty of differences as well as similarities between these two models. So starting with the box, this is actually going to be the same split colored box as the first model with that black kind of whitish gray split, but it does feature a slightly different logo on the top with sort of some wavy lines running through a circle design. And then the GT Cut had some like more jagged lines running through there. So that actually references the name of the model, and it just now dawned on me that that's what they did with that GT Cut line, which I guess that's kind of a cool touch to kind of set these two models apart. And then since I'm here talking about it now, I'll go ahead and get this out of the way so I don't have to constantly talk about other shoes jumping around whenever you really just came here to talk about these. But this is the second shoe design in a set of 3. So the first is being the GT Cut that we just recently did. These are the GT Run here today. And then we will be reviewing the final edition, the GT Jump, soon, hopefully. So, but just focusing on these, the retail tag is set for $175, which is actually $5 higher than the GT Cut. So they are going to be up there in pricing around the LeBron to Kobe range, but Nike does put a lot into these shoes, kind of as an attempt to make them worth your money. But that kind of covers the box and the price on these, so let's move on. All right, so before we get into the materials and the performance aspect for these, let's just take a quick look at the appearance and just sort of the overall design on this model. So right off the bat, I'm going to tell you I don't love the look of these as much as I did the GT Cut, but that's more biased just because I kind of like the look of low tops a little bit more in general, and these run closer to the mid top in my opinion. But setting that aside, since I don't want to say I love them, I'll just say that I really like them because this is still a sweet design. So let me just kind of give you a quick rundown of some of my favorite pieces on this shoe. So I rarely start with the tongue, but this GT Run logo on the center, kind of followed by that greater than underneath, that greater than sign underneath, give these a really nice look. And Nike has done a pretty great job of adding a bunch of subtle details to these shoes, which I'm a pretty big fan of. And I guess that is something that you would kind of expect or want with a relatively steep retail price. But moving down that tongue, you're going to be seeing a squiggly line that kind of leads to a BB logo. And many people have actually hinted that this is a nod to a previously released Nike BB NXT basketball shoe. And, this is like a rebranded or like a revamped looking design for that shoe, which, I actually think will sell slightly better with this being, it'll gain more traction anyways, with it being part of a series like these are here. And then you can actually find that BB design on the bottom of the shoe as well, near the heel or back part of your foot. But moving on from that, the midsole on these give a really nice look too. I do like that speckled design kind of followed with that Air Zoom branding on the midsole. And that's actually going to reference the cushioning that's inside of the shoe, which of course I'm going to get to in just a second for the performance section. And then looking to the back of the shoe on the heel, you're going to see a USA labeling on these, since of course this is the USA colorway for the GT Run. And then just to finish it off, if you jump back up to the tongue or to the inside of the tongue, Nike spells out the GT portion of the shoe line branding with the greater on the inside of the left shoe, followed by the word than on the inside of the right. So I really am digging this shoe line from like an aesthetic point of view so far, but now let's go ahead and move on from the appearance and check out just how well these shoes hold up on the court. All right, so for the last half of this review, I'll go ahead and combine the materials, the comfort, the traction, just basically how these hold up for performance. So as usual, I'm going to start out with the comfort on these. So these do have two main parts at play. So the first is, as that midsole shows, these do feature a double stacked React foam setup, covering the shoe from front to back. And that is going to include the insole as well, which I've always kind of been a big fan of, like the Epic React product. So I'm definitely still liking that on these shoes. And then if you take that insole out, you're going to see a 2-layered Zoom unit, Zoom Air units as well. And in the forefoot, you even have a Zoom Turbo unit that you can actually feel if you take that insole out and you feel around down there. And that's going to go ahead and round out the cushioning on these. So there's a pretty good amount of cushion to play with here, especially for a shoe as light as these are. They're even a good amount lighter than the first shoe in this series, the GT Cut. And then, of course, this is the GT Run, and I can't speak for the GT Jump just yet, but there definitely isn't a lot of give to that midsole, or at least not as much as I expected. Like the GT Cut felt like it had a little bit more. And although you still sit relatively low to the ground in these, it's going to be noticeably a little bit higher than that GT Cut shoe. And then jumping back up to the upper on these, definitely a lot to talk about in this region for these shoes specifically. So for starters, it's going to be made up of mostly a mesh material that I mentioned, of course, is going to keep these super light, especially for the amount of cushion that these are working with. And then that makes these really breathable as well. There's even multiple parts on this shoe that are kind of partially see-through. So that just kind of speaks to the breathability on there. And then you can see a little bit of a spike in that midsole where the Air Zoom design or Air Zoom patch is. And that's going to add a little bit of protection to the for your foot just to keep it from sliding out. And I actually did feel a good amount of support from that piece, especially since I like kind of turned my ankle last week kind of playing in the LeBron 18, because that doesn't really have a lot of supporting pieces on the outside to keep your foot locked into the shoe. And then just to go into a little more detail on this upper, this is actually a really good colorway to explain this or kind of talk about it, because while most of the upper is going to be that red color that you see, the blue beads that kind of cover the shoe or pods or whatever you want to call them, those are actually like act as protection to the material on the underneath layer. So I just found that that piece pretty cool. But there's also going to be some fuse overlays kind of ranging across the entire of the shoe. And then I will say that these feel a little bit strange when you kind of crease the toe, like whenever you're jumping, shooting, walking. That mesh material, that even though it does feel pretty thin, it's going to remain really durable. But I didn't notice it like in a negative way for the most part. It did kind of start to rub my right toe on my foot, but I didn't really feel it on my left. So it could just be one of those weird things, but it might still be something to keep an eye on whenever you first get them and like whenever you're trying them on and walking around. And then it's there's a pretty obvious material change around the back half of this upper, kind of near the heel and near the ankle. And that's just more of sturdy design. It's going to give your foot a more secure and locked in feel, as opposed to like more flexibility up in that front region of the shoe. And then now moving to the bottom of these, the traction pattern is going to be a little bit different from the GT Cut, which I was actually a little bit surprised about, since this is, of course, like we've talked about, the second shoe in a 3-part series. So they all kind of cater to different styles of play though, and they target different strengths. So I guess that's kind of not all that surprising to see a different traction setup. But the grooves aren't going to be super thick, so I am a little interested to see how these hold up for like repeated outdoor use if you use it that way. But the overall flow of the pattern is going to have you covered in all multi-directional cuts, which is a big plus for these shoes. And I really did feel like some good grip on the court for my first playing session in these shoes. And then to finish off with sizing, I went true to size on these, and I will say that they seem to run just a little bit bigger than the GT Cut. I had some additional space up near the edge of my toes, but I want to say not enough to where I would risk going a half size down for a tighter fit. These are somewhat tricky to get on, so you will probably need to loosen those laces, because they gave that mesh upper a pretty firm feel, because of course you don't want it like stretching and allowing your foot to just slide around, making it easier to roll your ankle potentially. But overall, this is another solid shoe in addition to the Nike Greater Than series. The design is pretty tight. They are super breathable with plenty of cushion, and they just give you a really well-rounded feel for performance. All right, so that pretty much wraps up our unboxing performance review on the Nike Air Zoom GT Run USA. Thank you guys for taking some time to watch. And then if you are interested in purchasing these shoes, just go ahead and check out the links in the description below. Also, be sure to click the link in our bio, and from there you can find our shoes that are available for sale on our website. You can also head over to our social media just to kind of stay informed on, different things like upcoming sneaker releases. And last, just feel free to leave a comment below if you like this shoe, or just let us know any other shoes that you want us to check out. But until next review, I'm Landon from Shoewear. Peace.